Hey everybody, welcome to Hoop and Harm, as always joined by Nolan. Welcome back from, I will say, a free agency hiatus. And the NBA kicked off like it always does. Lots and lots of stories. Everyone gets to get their opinion out there. People are rating the winners and the losers. And so we're coming in off the top rope with our winners and losers of free agency. And Nolan's going to start us off. We like to start off with the good and we'll finish with the bad. So who are your top winners so far in free agency that you think are not questionable? You think really these are going to pay dividends, the moves they made, who they got, all of that jazz. Who's your big winner? Give me who your top picks are for the teams that should be excited about the upcoming year.
I've got two clear winners of the offseason so far for me that just stand above the rest. And there's other teams worth talking about, but the two teams to me that today are better than they were, and we're talking about two contenders in the West, Denver and Houston. I think both had very good seasons, and yet come out of this offseason so far, and more could still be done, but as better equipped to face off against the rest of the competition, including the Thunder in the West, Denver and Houston. And I would even go so far to say I think Denver's got the edge.
So if I look at the Western Conference, for everyone to kind of remember, because I know it was a long time ago, but we ended the season, OKC was the clear number 1 seed, beat everybody by a lot, not a little, a lot. The number 2 seed was the Houston Rockets. The number 3 seed was the Lakers. The number 4 seed was the Denver Nuggets. So you're talking about the 2 seed, the Houston Rockets, with their big moves, and the Denver Nuggets, who were the 4 seed, fired their coach, rehired the new coach, which we both kind of agree that's a good, solid move. Mm-hmm. I want to walk through Denver's pieces first because I agree with you on Denver. It's almost as if they saw what they needed against OKC, and it's every piece and every move. I don't think they missed on anything based on my outside perspective. I mean, walk us through why you think they're the big winner in your mind.
So they did not, they obviously took a big piece from their core in Michael Porter Jr.
Correct.
And they traded him. But they traded him in a one-for-one deal, essentially, to get Cam Johnson. And to me, so obviously Michael Porter Jr. can light up the scoreboard. He can go off. He can have nights. I'm sure he's had, nights where he won games for Denver. And you don't want to take that away from him. But in the regular day-to-day flow of the offense and what they do, I think Cam Johnson is a better fit. He doesn't demand the ball as much as Michael Porter Jr. He doesn't like I kind of alluded to, disrupt the flow of the offense because he's good at playing off the ball. He can catch and shoot just like MPJ. He can fill up the stat sheet too. He's one of those guys that quietly like, oh wow, like I didn't realize Cam Johnson had 28 points tonight. Like, how did that happen? But he does so in a lot of different ways. And what I like about what Cam Johnson brings is he brings defensive versatility that you did not get from Michael Porter Jr. I don't know. I just look at that starting lineup. Just if they made that move alone, I like it for Denver.
So on Cam, because I know him very well, he helped us get to the finals as a Phoenix Suns fan. He was in my opinion, one of the key pieces before we went and got Beal and KD. He played very well with Chris Paul and Booker. And he wasn't off the bench. He was one of the guys who was starting. Excellent defense, and he gets hot. And I mean hot from 3. He can light it up, has great range, can shoot from anywhere, plays really good defense. The other thing that always surprised me with him is he can finish at the rim. Mm-hmm. There are many times where you drive in there and dunk on people, and you're like enthusiastic. The whole crowd goes crazy. So when you're talking about Joker and Murray, and then you have Cam as a piece, and you're like, you play that pick and roll team, that's a great piece. And to your point, like if that's the move they make, I really like it because I have a lot of faith in Cam. I really liked him on the Suns. I thought he was, kind of lost on Brooklyn. That was kind of a trade just to throw him in to get KD. So if you look at this for Brooklyn's point of view, that's still the KD trade that they're getting this piece for. They get Porter Jr., who goes to Brooklyn, who will then go to the East Coast of Oblivion, as we'll call it, because we both know Brooklyn's not playing for this year. And they get Cam, knowing they want to get to the finals. Cam has been to the finals, has not won a championship. So this is a great addition. But wait, there's more.
Yeah.
Who else did they get?
So they, in addition to picking up Cam Johnson, they reunited with Bruce Brown, who, if you remember, was part of their finals run in 2023. He, for who really knows, but it certainly seems like he didn't really want to leave Denver, but was given the bag by Indiana, who ended up rerouting him to Toronto for Siakam, and he's been on a couple different teams since then. He is a glue guy, a guy who comes off the bench and again can guard multiple positions, plays really good defense. Maybe not as good of a shooter as you would like, but kind of like a Swiss Army knife type of guy that is great and just excelled in that role with Denver. So the fact that they get him back now, I think that's a huge key. And in addition to Brown,
before you go into more, the one thing I like about both of these additions is you have two players who are going to be grateful to be on a contender.
Yes.
Both players were on contending teams, went into the oblivion of teams that had no contention. They played for nothing, no playoffs, no future, nothing that was going to happen. Now they're right in the top four because, in my opinion, Denver was a top 4 team last year. So until you dethrone them and you're playing with an MVP caliber player, like I just look at this for Joker and I'm like, this is great for him and great for Murray, because when I was watching them in the OKC playoffs, they were time frames. They couldn't bring in more players. They didn't have a deep bench and they weren't relying on more people. But the other thing is nobody was hitting big shots besides Joker or Murray at times. And you're like, you need someone else to step up, and they were missing so many of those opportunities. So I remember Bruce hitting shots in their finals run that just killed you.
Yep.
And he's not the guy you're not worried about him.
You're not expecting him to, but.
And then when he made it, you're like, this is murder. It's just, you can't get over that hump.
It made you feel like that, well, this is why this is the Nuggets year. And
the best part about, you have two grateful, talented NBA players who were talented in their own right. They went on their own. Now they're back with Denver. They're in a system with a team, but wait, there's more.
Yep. And they bring in Tim Hardaway Jr., who, look, he has his flaws. He has his, imperfections. He'll certainly have nights where, he just might as well not be on the team because he's just not hitting him that night. But he can get hot and he can be a good shooter. And guess what? He doesn't have to be that guy every single night for Denver. You're going to have him off the bench, and you're going to ride that wave when he's hot, when he's hitting the threes, and he's going to have very little pressure on him to do much of anything else. He's certainly not going to have as much expectations as he did playing for Detroit, who was a young team who needed him to kind of be a steady veteran. No, they've got all the steady veterans that they need on that team. And I think he's going to be great off the bench. He'll have games where he's not, you're not going to see him get a lot of minutes, but then you're going to have other games where, like, oh my gosh, Tim Hardaway Jr. put up 20 points off the bench and it really, really made a difference. So,
and you had him with the Knicks, if I remember correctly, in his
twice.
Yep.
Twice. Yep.
I think the other thing is, if you're watching the two teams that made it to the finals, one of the things that I noticed is that the depth of the bench. Denver grew the depth of their bench. They're going to play they can play Hardaway quite a bit. They can play Cam quite a bit. They can play these players, a lot more and rely on them. So you're not relying on Joker and Murray to not take a breather in the playoffs, let alone the regular season.
These were guys that were starters last year, that were like the best 2 or 3 best players on their team last year in a sense. And now they're coming off the bench. I just think it's a perfect scenario for Denver.
And did you hear the post-game interviews of some of the OKC people who were like, they literally called out the Denver series? Like Denver had done it before. There was a lot of stress. There was a lot of pressure. They didn't know. They took them to 7.
Yep.
I'm telling you, Denver, to me, these 3 moves are great.
Now that they even made a 4th move too. I don't know if you saw they got Valanciunas from the Kings. There's rumors that he's going to leave and play in Europe. I don't know as of this recording right now if that's been settled or not. But if you have Valanciunas, again, he's a guy who could probably be a starter on a lot of teams, but he's your guy coming off to the bench to give Joker a few minutes, and he's got an offensive game. He can rebound. So for 10 minutes a game of Valanciunas is another great pickup for them too.
And the other thing is, I heard that they're going to get Westbrook back as well. Mr. Energy, they're going to making some calls to try to make that happen again. So as we let the waters kind of settle, I will say this: forgetting if whether or not they can get all these other things that are rumored or what he may play in Europe, he may stay. This team got a lot better, and Joker is the MVP. If he doesn't win the MVP this upcoming year, I'll be shocked. He probably will average a triple-double. Like, this is guaranteed with those additions. I mean, he was giving that many assists beforehand. He just got more lethal. This team is better. I think this team is, they know what they want to do. They certainly know what the opportunity is in front of them. If I look at the top 4 teams, now clearly OKC is loaded. They're not going anywhere. That brings us to Houston and the Lakers, and the Lakers didn't make anybody's list for many, many reasons, and I think them making the top 4 next year for the Lakers, I would be surprised at. Let's get into your next team that was a big winner, but I think we can both agree. Denver, and I don't know anybody, I haven't read anybody saying Denver missed or messed up. I think everyone collectively is like, Denver is a must-watch. This team's going to be great. I just, in my brain, I'm thinking about Joker and these triple doubles he's going to have, like 40,
I think
15,
I think
15.
we can expect their pace to pick up a little bit too, which will be fun to watch. I think without MPJ slowing the ball down every once in a while, I think you'll see a much better flow with Johnson in the lineup.
It's an intriguing watch. I know they got a lot of season to go by, but they really showed a lot of things. A lot of folks, I mean, they gave OKC a good run. And in my opinion, I still felt they were a better run against than Indiana, for instance. I thought Indiana was special this year in the postseason, which is why they did what they did. But overall, to me, it was like Denver was legitimately helped OKC grow up. And now they're like, let's bring back the guys and let's give OKC the run for their money, because it's been proven that OKC is not this dynasty that everyone can think that will never.
They're not infallible.
No, I would agree with that. So, huge marks for Denver. Who else you have? You said
Houston's number 2 for me. I think, you and I were saying, for weeks now that, we may not have liked it. I don't know. As a Suns fan, you may not have been crazy about giving any help to Houston, but they probably made the most sense for KD or one of 2 or 3 teams that really made real sense to get KD at his age, at this stage. He could really be like the icing on the cake for them. They were really missing a closer. They were really missing a threat, a reliable threat at the end of the games. And KD is obviously that in spades. So you have to like what they did for bringing in KD.
And we both talked about this trade in another episode. They didn't give up a lot. They didn't give up their future. They didn't give up the talent that got them to the 2 seed. So they didn't win the first round of the playoffs. They lost to Curry and the Golden State Warriors, which was hard for them. So I think this puts them over the edge. Mm-hmm. I think if you were to say OKC, Denver, and Houston, that's your 1, 2, 3 going into the Western Conference, which says a lot because the Western Conference,
that'll be my prediction,
is very loaded. And then you're talking about OKC, the 1, Houston versus Denver. If they can both get out of the first rounds, which Houston had struggles with, I think a Houston-Denver series, I can't wait for.
Yeah. Oh, it'll be a lot of fun. A lot of storylines. I think, especially with maybe Houston. If you get to see Houston versus OKC, now you add Durant to that mix. But then I like what they did. The one thing you could say in that. So maybe other people disagree with me. I think you and I are on the same page. I'm not a big Jalen Green fan. I don't think they really lose a lot by losing Jalen Green. I don't see him as like being this generational superstar talent that maybe people thought he could be when they first drafted him. But if you wanted to say like what did they lose in that trade? Well, Dylan Brooks is a tough player. He's a great role player. He brings a lot of energy. He can shoot. I think that they made up for that in bringing Dorian Finney-Smith onto the team. They signed him from the Lakers, and I think the Lakers lost a lot of toughness, and I think Houston gains it in DFS. Again, toughness, shooting, rebounding, switchability, can play a couple different, roles. So I really like him to kind of fill that gap that was left when they traded Dylan Brooks to make up for that loss.
I think the biggest thing that I see when I watch the Houston first round, the two players that they lost for KD, neither one of them had a positive impact against Golden State. Yeah. Neither one of them were the reasons why they won games. I could argue that they were the reasons why they hurt them in games. So I understand completely why it's kind of like, yeah, we'll give you these two guys. It just wasn't a fit for that playoff series. And I know it's easy to blame individuals for what the team was or chemistry or what have you, but to go get Kevin Durant and to lose two pieces that, in my opinion, I never was like, man, that guy is a real playoff contender. I mean, he really is showing you a lot of awesome.
They're not irreplaceable, that's for sure.
Yeah, so they lost those two individuals. It's almost like when I look at like they're getting an elite closer, which they didn't have. This is the difference between our first team we talked about, Denver. Denver has the elite closer. They were getting all the role players. I feel Houston had the role players. They needed an elite closer. The question is going to remain, can Kevin Durant stay healthy for the full year and be ready to be the closer at the end of the year? It depends on how they play him. I trust the coaching staff of both of the teams we mentioned. I think Denver has a good staff, and I know for certain Houston has a great coaching staff. So these teams that we're talking about making the right moves, shocking, they don't have coaching question marks. They're strong coaches. They'll be able to do what they need to do with the folks that they have. So this is, again, more the rich get richer, as you would say. So we're talking about a 4 seed and a 2 seed. And they both got better in contention with OKC. So I don't think OKC is paddleboarding their way to the future of another championship. I think it's going to be difficult to get out of the Western Conference for OKC.
Yeah. It's if you want to, I don't know what Vegas is doing about this right now, but like OKC repeating next year, I don't think is as much of a lock as it was before the offseason started.
And that's I mean, again, we thought going into this, if they didn't make the finals, it would be a failure.
Yeah.
And then when they went to the finals against Indiana, we were both like, well, you got to win this. And they teetered. I mean,
they did. It could have went either way.
And still until an injury. So I can look up those odds here in a minute for 2026. But those are your two winners. Did you have any other honorable mentions that you're like?
I have teams that I'm interested in. I'll say very quickly, I can't call them winners because they didn't do much other than the draft. But I think San Antonio is in a good place. They made a decision, I think, to be patient and not to go for some big splashy move. Let's see how De'Aaron Fox and Wembanyama works out for a year. Let's develop some rookies. I think they could still make the playoffs with the team that they have as currently constituted, and they're well in position to make a big move down the road. So I can't really call them winners of the offseason because they didn't do a ton, but I don't think they're necessarily losers for not doing anything. I think they're probably playing it smart, safe, and smart.
That's fair.
A lot of people want to champion Orlando, and it's hard to argue they're not better. They added Desmond Bane. He's a great 3-and-D player. He can really shoot the heck out of the ball, and that's going to help them. and maybe that's all that was needed to push them to the next level in the East. I still don't know if I buy them as a top contender, though.
It's interesting you say that because I'm looking at the odds, and our two teams, Denver and Houston, are currently sitting 3-4. 1 and 2 are OKC and New York. I think the Knicks are high in that board, being the top Eastern Conference team. But
Cleveland's got to be still up there, right?
Cleveland is the next; they're 5th, and Orlando is 6th.
Interesting. Okay.
So they also loved the Orlando move. I like the Orlando move, because it surprised me. They gave up a lot. They gave up a lot for him.
Right.
I didn't think that's the one key piece they're missing to give them a championship, because they were just kind of like a nice team. They weren't like, wow, we have to really worry about this team. But if I'm Orlando and I looked at the Eastern Conference, they put it into 5th gear pretty quickly, gave up a lot, but they wanted to make a splash. And if you're talking about Boston and Indiana with their injuries before any free agency, we both said the Eastern Conference is open.
Yeah.
So Orlando is running to that kind of like, how do we get there? How can we make that successful for ourselves? So congratulations for them for making the moves. I think they're honorable. They're like an honorable mention. I don't think they're the top tier, but they're certainly, they only impacted their team in the net benefit because Bane's good. Bane showed in the playoffs that he is really, really good. And he now has a team that I think is much better than the team he was on in Memphis. So I'm be interested to see how they do it in the regular season. Like, are they a top 4 team, home court advantage? That would be my expectation from this trade. You better be a top 4 team for everything you gave up for him.
Absolutely. I mean, they gave up a lot in terms of draft capital for sure. You know, the on-court pieces, I think I think Bane is better than Caldwell Pope, so you forget about him. I don't mean to slight KCP at all. He was an important part of that Nuggets run, and he'll be good. He'll have good moments for Memphis too. Cole Anthony could never really figure out if he was a starter or a bench player. He was kind of back and forth, up and down. And I'm pretty sure they picked up another point guard anyway, so they might not. That's a wash. But they did give up a lot of draft capital, so I would agree. Take that next step. Be a 4th seed. Get home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs, and then we could say this was a successful offseason.
That's our big winners that we will. Obviously, we didn't mention your team. Comment. Tell us which one you think is a huge or a bigger one of the ones we just mentioned. Now let's get to the losers, the ones that kind of made us scratch our head, him and Ha, wonder what they're thinking. How did this happen? Or did it go so wrong so quickly? Who's your top tier losers that you have?
Yeah, I'm really disappointed in Detroit and what they have done or not done this year. Their young core is still obviously very much intact, and that's great. But 3 pretty important pieces from their run this year, and they weren't supposed to be a playoff team this year, and they were, and I thought they would have capitalized on it. They lost Beasley, who may never play in the NBA again if the allegations about his involvement in gambling are true. But he was huge for them this year. And then they lost Hardaway, who was, again, a big part of what they did and their team this year. And they lost Dennis Schroeder. And that's a lot of veteran guard play that is just gone. They replaced, they got Duncan Robinson from Miami, who, okay, he's a good shooter, but if he's not that night, what is he doing for you? Like, I don't see it. I guess there's an argument that could be made, like Detroit saying, like, all right, well, we're just going to let our young guys take that step, and we're going to put the onus on them. Cade Cunningham, Ron Holland, Thompson, Jalen Duran, this is your team now. Like, forget about the vets. We still got Tobias Harris, but I don't know. I thought they were primed to get somebody big, and maybe that somebody's not out there. Maybe there's a trade to come. Maybe they wait until the off season or the trade deadline. But man, there's something lacking in their roster. Cade Cunningham needs, I think, a number 2, and I don't think he has it yet.
I think the one thing that shocked me the most so far about what Detroit is doing is I felt, and I had them pinned as one of the teams that can make it to a top 4 in the playoffs based on their performance this last year. And then how they played the Knicks, I was very happy with. And then you have Boston and Indiana had the injuries, and you're like, hey, this is a door that's opening right now. You may
Mm-hmm.
not have thought it was going to open, to our point. We didn't think they
Yep.
were going to be in the playoffs. There are. So sometimes the door opens and you can walk right through it. Instead, they lose players. They didn't add anybody really of great notability that you're like, hey, this person's going to be crushing it. So to me, it's like Detroit's like their playoff. But like if I look at them compared to Orlando is better than them. And then I sprinkle in a team we haven't even talked about, like Atlanta is at least trying. Like they're throwing passes. I felt Detroit's taking a knee here. And to your point, maybe they're like, hey, we really trust our young guys and we're going to put role players around them. I mean, hats off. Maybe they know more than we do, which you would hope so. But I thought this was a grand opportunity for Detroit to make a splash and really do a kind of like Orlando did.
Yeah, I would have, before the offseason started, I would have said, I just felt like Detroit is, I mean, Detroit's a great basketball city. I mean, they love their basketball there. You know, you got Michigan State hoops, you got Detroit, Pistons, the Bad Boys, a lot of great history, Isaiah Thomas, the whole deal. Of course, those great teams from the early 2000s. They're just dying for good hoops. And I would have said before the offseason started, Detroit is a big splashy move and a couple role-playing moves away from being one of the very top teams in the East. And they kind of let Atlanta and Orlando into that position. And I know Orlando has a better track record in recent years than Detroit, but I thought because of Detroit's toughness, they would have been in a better position to take advantage, and they haven't yet. They are getting Jaden Ivey back. So again, maybe it's just like, let's see what our young guys could do, and then we'll make our splashy move down the road. It's certainly not necessarily a rush, but I agree. I thought there was a door wide open for them, and they haven't really stepped through it.
Yeah, and I think they've been disappointing based on our expectations going into it. But the other thing is, I really felt that the Knicks series was there.
Mm-hmm.
I know they didn't win it. I know they didn't take them to 7, but I felt like they were there. Now,
They were
to
there.
your point, they lost some key pieces. So, like, the Knicks are there, but Detroit, I feel like, is maybe they're 7 or 8 now, which is really surprising to me because I thought Detroit would try to make a push for top 4. So, I agree with you. Really disappointing. Maybe they're not seeing the door or the window that they can crawl through or walk through. So, this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
So disappointing to say the least. What was your other disappointments in the free agency market?
I'm just kind of stunned with like Indiana's response to the Halliburton injury. Because it would seem, and maybe I'm wrong, we don't know the conversation that go behind closed doors, but it would seem that they kind of punting on this year with Halliburton out. And to me, as good as Halliburton is, and he is the real deal, he proved himself. He's a superstar. He's a clutch player. But I thought that their strength all postseason was their depth. And I really think, yes, do they lose significantly without Halliburton? Of course. But I think in the East, the way that it is right now, I thought they still could have been a contender. I thought they still could have, put themselves out there and given themselves a chance to shock people again in the playoffs by how they come together as a team. I mean, to me, that just screamed like a situation like, okay, we lost Halliburton for the year, but we've got this deep team that knows how to play together with a coach who gets everything out of his players. Let's just get a guy to, I think Nembhard is going to be probably their starting point guard this year. Let's just get a veteran in here to split the point guard duties. I don't know if he would have been interested. Chris Paul, for example. Let's just get Chris Paul in here and let's have him split point guarding duties with Nembhard. You're telling me that's not a team that could that could contend at least and drive other teams crazy in the East. But then they go and they lose their starting all-star caliber center and Turner.
And they don't lose him to like Brooklyn.
They lose him to the Bucks.
They lose him to Milwaukee, who we thought was going to trade and get rid of Giannis, which is obviously has not happened. And probably now you have Turner and Giannis, and they dropped, their point guard, which was also a shocking move. So Milwaukee is making moves that surprised us in the positive. And this Indiana move, I agree wholeheartedly. It was one of the things that I talked about in the final series. Indiana's depth down low hurt OKC, and it hurt every team.
Boston, you can understand them punting a year. They're not going to have Tatum. They had at least two albatross contracts. They have some other contracts I think that they'd probably like to restructure if they could, but they could afford to punt this year, so to speak.
But hold on for a second. I don't even think they punted. The trades that they made make sense for them.
They do.
Even getting rid of Holiday to Portland gets rid of a bad contract and brings over a player that we both think could do something. They're afraid to get rid of Porzingis there to Atlanta. They brought back an Atlanta center who is going to be very He's not a nobody. So Boston's going to find these pieces and utilize them. That's the part about this Indiana free agency is they just lost Turner.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that said, I guess they traded for this Memphis guy and everyone's like, here's our new center. And I'm sorry, he's not what Turner was.
Right.
So I agree with you about coaching staff, but there are a lot of question marks above the Indiana Pacers because yes.
I guess my point in bringing up Boston was like Indiana doesn't really have any, I don't think, albatross contracts. In fact, they've got a lot of guys that, and every team would love to have that they're untradeable from Indiana's perspective because they're on good contracts,
right?
And maybe as they continue going and contracts end, maybe they have to, cut bait with some of these guys because they can't afford them anymore. But I don't know. I would have pegged Indiana as a playoff team next year, and I probably still will, because I think they'll figure out a way in a poor East, but I think they could have been a legit contender still, even without Halliburton.
I think losing Turner is a big deal.
It is.
And again, this is one of those things that in my memory, when I'm watching these games, Turner hit big shots, made big defensive stops. He spread the floor for your point guards to move around by playing out there at the 3-point land. I know most centers do that, but he just did a lot of things that were just the right place, right time, right guy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have those people, it's like you can't. Those are hard to come by. Like it's just like people who just have the awareness to know where they need to be. And
the other crazy thing, I don't have to cut you off, Renner, but like Miles Turner was in trade rumors for like the last 7 years. Like every year at the deadline, like Miles Turner has been almost traded, and then they finally get to a finals with the guy who's been nothing but loyal. And you trade him to the Bucks of all team, like one of your biggest rivals. Like, does Indiana have a bigger rivalry than Milwaukee? Maybe Chicago, Cleveland, but that blows my mind. And I mean, you can't tell me that Miles Turner wanted to leave at this point.
It depends on Milwaukee paid him, and
they did.
Indiana didn't. So this is where you sit. So.
Right.
I tend to agree with your ranking of the first one doesn't make sense. And I know we're in the East here and we should definitely venture out West because I have a team or two that I want to throw into the bag of I don't understand or I don't.
Can I guess who your number one team is?
Sure.
Is your number one team the Lakers?
It just so happens to be the Lakers because I know who they picked up so well. And the center who the Lakers have, the Lakers got the 1 and 2 pick of the draft. They got Luka and they got,
that's right.
And they got
2018 draft.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah. Luka wasn't the one. Ayton was the one.
Yeah.
Suns passed on Luka.
Luka should have been the one.
Right. I keep forgetting that in my mind because one player is clearly much better than the other. When the Suns got rid of him after their finals debacle, one of the reasons why is because he spent more time on video games than watching film or playing basketball. And if you've watched him on Portland, he's not very good on defense. He doesn't jump a whole lot. He's not a big rebounder, putback, dunker guy. And Luka loves the big athletic guys that he can throw the ball 12 feet in the air and they dunk it and everyone gets excited. I mean, he'll catch the ball, he'll come down, and then he'll lay it in. But on a pick and roll defense with these two, I think that's just an absolute, just give them ice skates at this point, because this is going to be a really bad. I think the Lakers are not a top 4 in the West at this point, and I see LeBron getting moved because he's already hinted he wants to be with a contender.
Yep.
So this is the way that I see the Lakers aren't in contention land, and Luka and number 1 and number 2 picks here, I just don't like it.
Yeah, it's it almost makes you wonder if the Lakers are trying to push LeBron out. Because ostensibly you'd think they're going to try to do whatever they can to keep LeBron, because you got LeBron and Luka. But there's part of me that thinks maybe they're tired of the whole LeBron show and they're ready to move on. Maybe they were hoping he would decline his player option. And now they're because if you can trade him, you probably could convince somebody to give you a lot back and be better off. But I don't know. We don't need to go there. But I just, I think the Lakers have to be considered losers, because whether or not they want to keep LeBron, you think they would have wanted to do more around Luka than just adding Ayton. I mean, and Jake LaRavia.
Okay. I mean, again, there's players that have names that you watch play, like Porzingis, for instance, with Boston. At least he's made the playoffs and shown up in the playoffs. Ayton was very nice in the playoffs, but he lacks the defensive, he lacks the toughness down low that you want in a playoff guy. And I'm sure people around the league feel that way about him. He'll have good nights, but he's a 16-10 guy. I mean, he gets to play with Luka. Does that mean he's better on defense? Luka's a revolving door on defense. We've seen that. So when I look at this from my little window,
the Lakers are problematic.
I think the Lakers are going to have a tough time on defense. I don't see them improving from 4 based on what we're seeing in the Western Conference. I see them not improving and getting worse. And I do see a pressure point for free agency. The other team that, to me is I feel tried really hard to make splashes, and everyone writing about how they're going to make a good splash was Atlanta. I feel like Atlanta went and made a bunch of moves. They're trying to get better in the East. They're like, hey, the door's open. Now's our chance. My problem is Trey's not a superstar. Porzingis doesn't play all the time. You got 2 guys that we already laugh about probably playing 40 games together. So does Atlanta make it in the top 4 of the East? I'd say if they can get out of the play-in game, I would say that's a big win for Atlanta. That would be my big win for them if they're not in the play-in games.
Some people are really high on what Atlanta did. I would say for me, you gotta show me, you gotta prove it. I think they have made their ceiling higher, but they've also made their floor lower. Because if that's possible, because Trae Young, I agree. I don't think he's a superstar. I think you need more than just him if you're going to be a contender. But he's a darn good player. He can absolutely he can be clutch. He can hit some incredible shots. He can win he can and will win a lot of games for you. But they got Porzingis, who might not ever play. Or could get hurt at any point. Still not sure what the heck he was dealing with at the end of the season this year. They do have an incredible defensive player in Dyson Daniels. They've added Nickeil Alexander-Walker from Minnesota, who I really wanted to see Minnesota hold on to, and he's going to be a great defender, scorer off the bench for them. Jalen Johnson is a budding superstar. I mean, you could very well see him make his first All-Star team this year. They got Luke Kennard, who can shoot really well. So again, I say I could see a scenario where a lot of this was a big nothing burger and they're no good. But I could also see like them really hitting and being scrappy, and a lot of these guys feeling like they have something to prove. And maybe KP gets healthy and has a great season and is a great pairing with Trey.
If they make the top 4, this is where your dial makes sense to me. If they make the top 4, is it a completely blows my socks away? I would say I'd be very surprised. If they're in the playing game again, that's where I expect them to be. Yeah. Maybe because my bias of Atlanta. I expect Orlando to be in the top 4. I expect the Knicks to be top 4. Mm-hmm. Like, there's certain teams in the Eastern Conference. Detroit took a step back. Maybe Atlanta fills where Detroit was. I don't know. But, like, all of these players they got are kind of like maybes, to your point. They may be great, and they may be absent. They may not show up. They may get hurt in preseason, for all we know. So Atlanta's a big mystery. They made a lot of moves. I think the Lakers are a loser. I agree with you about Detroit. I agree with you about Indiana. That leaves us with our last 2 favorite teams. Anything to say about your Knicks? I think the only thing they did in free agency was they picked up a coach. That's what they got, and I know what the Suns did. So why don't you talk about the Knicks, and I'll talk about the Suns.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm like jumping for joy that Mike Brown is the coach, but I also don't think it's like a disaster either. I think he was probably like a safe choice, which is not always what we want to hear, but I just didn't see out there available that absolute must have, got to get that coach that's going to put them over the edge. I don't think the problem with the Knicks was necessarily that they certainly didn't have a bad coach in Tom Thibodeau, but they had a coach who I think had come to the end of his run. At least half the team, they say, we're tired of playing for him. And I watched almost every single Knick game there was this year. They underperformed more often than not. They did not bring it. And so to me, they needed a fresh coat of paint. Now, you don't want to get the wrong coach in there, but I'm okay with the safe pick. I'm okay with the safe bet in Brown. He has been to a finals as a coach before. He has won, I think, 4 rings with Golden State as an assistant. I could be wrong. Maybe there was someone else in there too that there was another team in there that he tagged along with for a finals run. So he preaches defense, which is what we want still. But I don't know. I think it's worthwhile. I think it's worthwhile. The roster, I don't think they could do much unless they were trading one of their core. And I did not want them to do that. I did not want them to trade someone from, their top 6 guys in the lineup. And they haven't done that yet to this point. They got a scorer off the bench in Clarkson. And they got Yabusele from the Sixers, a big man who is also a scorer. Both of those moves you can kind of look at and be like, that's interesting. They didn't pick up any defenders off the bench. And maybe that's a problem, but also a case could be made if they could have scored during some of their games where they were not doing well on defense. Maybe if they scored a little more or had some scoring punch off the bench, maybe they wouldn't need to play perfect defense. So that's my ramblings about the Knicks.
He's won Coach of the Year twice, Cleveland, and then with Sacramento, believe it or not. His first year with Sacramento. The biggest thing that I look at is will he play a larger bench? Will you be playing more than 7 players all season long, which is what you need? And the biggest question mark that I have is, who are your key pieces besides Brunson late in the game? And how do you play off of that? Because Brunson clearly is a clutch guy and he closes things out, but his biggest problem is he's not 6'7", which means he can't create everything that he wants to, which is a problem in the playoffs. And it was a problem against Indiana and their scrappy defense because they pick him up full court. So how Mike Brown coaches Brunson and his talent and this team and adding more bench players will be interesting. He's got a high bar. Everyone's projecting the Knicks to be the Eastern Conference Finals, at least the Eastern Conference Finals, with Boston and Indiana taking a step back. So let's see what happens. I mean, that's your play. I understand what you're saying. You got to look positively at it. We'll see. if they do anything right before training camp like they did last year, which was surprising to all of us. So
right.
he's
We'll have time to talk about it before the season and as leading up to the season. But what you said is what I'm looking is one of two things I'm looking for. Does he play the bench more than Thibodeau did? I think that's going to be key. Does he get more guys involved? And number two is a little more offensive creativity. The Knicks were one of the best offensive teams in the first quarter of the season, and I feel like teams figured them out, and the Knicks never changed. So let's see Mike Brown bring some more offensive creativity. You have one of the best shooting big men of all time in Cat. You have an incredible offensive weapon in Jalen Brunson. You got shooters in Bridges and Anunoby. Let's see some real offensive creativity. You got offensive guys now coming off the bench in Clarkson and Yabusele. That's my looking forward point for the Knicks.
And as for the Suns, who are not projected to be in the Western Conference Finals, like the Knicks are projected to be in the Eastern Conference Finals, I think they got two centers that the Lakers would both prefer to have besides the one that they got. Just to be honest, if we re-signed Ayton today, I would be like, we're a disaster. It's even worse than I thought because now we think we're something. So we have a rookie center from Duke and we have the veteran center, or he's not even a veteran. He's still a baby. He's still in his low 20s. So the question is, do they buy out Beal? What are they doing with Booker? What are they doing with the rest of them? Because they still have a lot of salary on the books. We will see. They don't look like they're selling everything. They haven't burnt down the whole boat. So there's still something there. Are they playing salvageable? I don't even want to say that right now because free agency has been like KD focused. I'll know more if like they buy out Beal. I'm going to be like, that's really, really, really interesting to me because they would rather spend $110 million or whatever it is just to not have him in the locker room.
Yeah.
And so that says, again, hats off to Beal. You had a great contract. Is this as bad as Ben Simmons' contracts? I can't imagine it's as bad as that, but it's certainly in the zip code. Like they're certainly neighbors.
Right.
Like, are they next door neighbors? Are they like a couple miles apart? They send their kids to the same school. Like
they might be in the same psychiatric hospital, maybe not the same ward or the same wing, but
that was a terrible, terrible trade, terrible, terrible experience for Suns fans. So the question is, what are we going to be? Are we a play-in team because we're not a top four? What are we doing with Booker? What are we doing with this team that we have today? And then also the team in the future. I have more questions than I have answers for you. As somebody who is a big Suns fan, I thought we would trade more. We haven't done that. I thought we'd get rid of more people. I'm all on board with getting rid of Beal. I'm fine with the coach we got. The coach is going to have to salvage whatever it is that we have. So again, it goes back to what part of the rebuild of the engine are you in now? Like, what is it in? Because it's not we're not humming along. We're not Denver and we're not Houston. No. We're not OKC. We're not these teams.
Well, you said it, Brendan. They last couple seasons have been about KD, and now I don't think the Suns know who they are without KD now because they put so much energy into being KD and Booker's team, and now it's back to Booker's team with a completely different like cast of characters around him than they had when they made the run to the finals. So I think their outlook is probably, we'll see who we are, and we'll make a decision around January, February of what we're doing from here on out.
I did see something interesting. Booker was in Detroit giving out some Nike shoes to the pitcher for the Tigers, Skubal. He was handing out, he had a Detroit hat and all this other stuff. And I was like, we both are disappointed in Detroit, but if they made a splash like we were talking about, you get a guy like Booker, you're now a top four. You're definitely there.
I don't know if I said it on this podcast, but Cade Cunningham and Booker as a backcourt duo. Wow.
I mean,
that would be exciting.
The other thing is it gets him out of that Western Conference, like drag race.
Yeah.
You're in the Eastern Conference where, he had the injury. So I don't know if the Suns are done. I don't know. I just know that they're not in contention and I can't see it around the horizon. 2 or 3 years. Don't see it. Like, at least with the Spurs, I see what they're doing in 2 or 3 years. They're a top 4 team in the playoffs, possibly. I know what they're up to. The Suns, I don't know what they're up to. I don't know. And you don't know.
I don't think they do.
Nobody knows because whenever they talk to them, it's the two GMs are handling two calls. Yeah, we're totally in. No, we're not.
Are they still consulting with Isaiah Thomas over there?
I don't believe so. but I would really like to continue to tell the new owner to please refrain from using plural when you use the word championship. Don't say plural like you've done in other.
Let's start with one.
So yeah, let's start with doing one. I would love to see the Lakers be like the Suns be like the Lakers and start winning championships all the time. That would be great. But let's get one banner. Let's get one.
Agreed.
As always, I'm your host. This is Nolan. That's your free agency show. Like, subscribe, join the Batter Sports family where your team just can't seem to get out of their own way. And you still love them and you hate them and you love them and you hate them all in the same day. So come on board. Let us know who your favorites team is or who provided you the most pain through the years, because basketball is a lot of pain. As Knicks fan and Suns fan can totally relate to that. Look forward to your comments. Thanks for joining us, everybody. You guys have a great, wherever you are, great day. Bye.
Take care.